Do you remember the story of when the terrorist attack on Benghazi was like all over the news and stuff back in 2012? Yeah, you probably don't. Okay, so 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. So this movie, of course, is about the terrorist attack in Libya back in September of 2012, September 11th to be exact. And there were these terrorists trying to attack the ambassadors. Of course, it was based on a true story. If you want to know more details, I'm not going to go into far details in this review. So, you can read about the story, I'm sure, if you're more interested. And, of course, just see the movie, like I did. It's much easier than having to read. You just sit there and watch. Anyway, so I'm mainly here just to talk about the movie itself. So I know that a lot of you are going to give me heat for this, but yes, I love Michael Bay movies. He's my favorite movie director. Basically anything he makes I like. And I gotta say, this movie as well, I also liked. Yes. So, now this movie though, the camera angles were good, it was filmed well, it was made well. I mean, maybe not the best acting. I'm sure these actors won't be up for any big awards and stuff. Would I personally nominate them for any awards? Probably not. But, they did the job. And still, Michael Bay, in my opinion, knows how to make a good action movie. A lot of the action scenes were good. In fact, going into this movie, I thought it would be more like a Zero Dark 30. More like it would just be lots of just dialogue or lots of just talking and really nothing goes on until the last half hour of the movie. But this was a total opposite of Zero Dark 30 for me, because in the first 30 minutes, that's kind of when the story was leading you up to the terrorist attack, and then the rest of the movie, bam, just gunshots, shootings, lots of great action scenes in this movie. If you're a fan of action movies, you will probably like this movie. And of course, if you're a fan of Michael Bay movies, like me, you will like them. And the one thing is, actually, some of the critics are actually giving Michael Bay a pass for this movie, thankfully. And, people, just individuals in general who don't like Michael Bay say that they like this movie. So, this movie is kind of the best of both worlds. I mean, for just the viewers, because for the Michael Bay fans who love the Transformers movies like me, they will like it. And as far as those who don't really care for the Transformers movies, who find them stupid or just find Michael Bay movies stupid in general, a lot of you guys would probably like this movie as well. And another thing Michael Bay included, besides the great filming and the great action scenes, is you also you develop an emotional attachment to the characters in this movie. I mean, you really feel for these guys. You know what they had to go through. You see all that they had to do, and man, it just kind of makes you see, just pretty much, at least in my opinion, the stuff they have to go through pretty much is not as bad as just thinking about it or seeing it on the news, and then you watch it in a movie, or really get you attached to it. And I think Michael Bay did that well. On top of that, I noticed this was a January release, and to be honest, I figured, okay, it's a Michael Bay movie, yeah, that's probably why they're releasing it in January, and it's not like a Transformers movie or the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, so that's probably why they're not releasing it in the summer. I figured the critics would bomb it, but they seemed, not necessarily did they bomb it or praise it, it's kind of in the in-between there, but I'd say a little bit above the halfway mark for the critics, so it's kind of man, I want to give this movie something good, but it's Michael Bay, so I'll give him a little something for this. That's kind of the way I feel that they felt about this movie. So, usually, of course, if you're a movie viewer, January is when you see a lot of the trash. Maybe that and February, and it's usually not till May or June when you start to get to the good stuff. For me, it's usually not until October. At least for the last 2 years, that was the case. But this movie, I actually have no idea why it was released in January, or at least, as I said earlier, Michael Bay, that's the only reason I could conclude that this movie was released in January. But other than that, does it not seem like just some dumb old January release. This movie, it was like an enjoyable movie, it's a good movie, and like, since last year, I've come more and more to appreciate movies based on true stories. As this was another movie based on a true story, I really do much appreciate. And you know, it seems that at the beginning of every year, or early on in the year, like around January or February, there seems to be this movie that just seems to hold up on top until around May or June, till it gets dethroned. And for this year, I'd say 13 Hours of Secret Soldiers of Benghazi is going to be the movie that will be holding on top probably until about May or June. Don't know for sure, but that is just my assumption. So, now comes the time to decide on what rating I will give this movie. So, after thinking a little bit, like I said, this movie, it was very enjoyable, it was made well, it's a good story. Of course, you know, probably won't go down as one of the best movies this year, but I'd say this movie is deserving of about a 72%. And we're going to compare that to the critics' average for this movie, which is not too bad from the critics for a Michael Bay movie, actually pretty good. Critics' average comes out to approximately about a 61%. That's about an 11% difference, which is still enough for the critics to take this movie. Yeah, I know. But, you know what, I'm not entirely mad about it, because, you know, I feel good after seeing that movie, and sometimes when you see a good movie, you feel good afterwards, and that's pretty much the way I feel after seeing any Michael Bay movie. I know a lot of you will disagree with me on that, but I'm sure there will be a good number of you that agree with me on this specific Michael Bay movie. So, yeah, really, whether you're a Michael Bay fan or not, please give this movie a chance. You know, make it some money, let it, come on top in the box office or whatever. Yeah, that probably won't happen. Okay, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time. Bye!